What is religion, really? A journey through faith, fear, and the human search for meaning. The unnamed ache. What is religion? Not the creeds, not the temples, not even the books bound in gold leaf and reverence, but the ache beneath it, the unanswered question behind every hymn, the fear behind every prayer, the longing behind every act of devotion. Religion is not the shape of your hands when you pray. It is the silence you hope will answer back. Long before we built churches or mosques, before we wrote scriptures or named gods, we looked up to the stars and whispered, "Why are we here? What happens when we die? Is anyone listening?" 1. The origin of belief. In the beginning, there were no doctrines, only wonder and terror. The first spark of religion came not from theology, but from fire, thunder, death, the sun that disappeared and came back again. The divine was everywhere, because fear was everywhere. As Blaise Pascal once said, "Man is but a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed." That thought, that fragile awareness, is where gods were born. We created meaning to survive meaninglessness. We built myth to hold mystery. We named gods to make suffering seem personal and bearable. Maybe religion began as a way of saying, "I am afraid and I don't want to be alone in this fear." 2. From wonder to identity. Over time, wonder hardened into dogma. Questions became commandments. Faith became tribe, and tribe gave us identity. To believe was not just to explore the unknown. It became a declaration. This is who I am. This is who we are. But with belonging comes exclusion. A line drawn in the sand. We are the saved. They are the lost. We have the truth. They are dangerous. And slowly, belief stopped evolving. It stopped listening. It began defending. As Nietzsche wrote, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies, because when belief becomes identity, we mistake questioning for betrayal." 3. The shadow of power. Religion comforts, but it also controls. For every saint who gave, there was a king who used. For every prayer of peace, there was a sword baptized in doctrine. The philosopher Karl Marx famously said, "Religion is the opium of the people." It wasn't an insult to faith itself, but a critique of how religion was used to pacify the masses, to justify hierarchy, to keep systems of suffering intact, with promises of paradise later. When people are starving, it is easier to sell them heaven. The fear of hell, the hope of reward, these are powerful levers. And so, belief becomes currency, and salvation a transaction. 4. When the holy turns violent. Perhaps the deepest tragedy of religion is not its failure to unify, but how often it justifies harm. How can something so sacred be used to spill blood? Because when belief becomes absolute, doubt becomes dangerous. The other becomes evil, and violence becomes virtue. As Voltaire warned, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Religious violence is not faith's fault, it is a human failure, amplified through the lens of certainty. No god asked to be weaponized, but we offered our gods the sword anyway. 5. The light that remains, still. For every misused pulpit, there are millions who pray with gentleness, who feed the hungry, who hold the grieving, who walk into temples, mosques, and churches not to judge, but to remember love. Because religion is not just about rules, it is also about rhythm, the rhythm of gathering, the rhythm of singing, the rhythm of saying, We're in this together. As Rumi wrote, the lamps are different, but the light is the same. Religion has painted cathedrals, composed symphonies, held mothers as they wept. It has been a companion to those who had no one else. And in its quietest forms, religion is less about answers and more about presence. Six, the new shape of faith. So where does that leave us? In an age of science, globalism, and collective doubt, is there still space for religion? Maybe, if we let it evolve. Not into louder claims, but into quieter questions. Not into rigid rules, but into shared reverence. Maybe faith can grow softer, less about knowing, more about not needing to know. Less about who's right and more about what helps us live with integrity. Religion might not need to die, but it needs to unlearn, to surrender control and return to wonder. Closing reflection, a sacred curiosity. So, what is religion? Maybe it's not belief in a God. Maybe it's the human act of reaching, of wanting to understand what cannot be understood, of naming the silence, of turning chaos into ritual, of turning death into story. Whether you kneel in prayer, sit in meditation, or simply pause under the stars, you are participating in something ancient, not because you believe the same things, but because you feel the same ache. You do not have to be religious to understand religion. You only need to feel the questions it was born to answer. And if you are questioning, doubting, unraveling, that's not betrayal. That's sacred too.